First, Dave, just how good does it feel just to kind of be back home and back in front of the home fans after what was a long road trip and also coming off the All-Star break?
It feels like it's good to be home. It feels like a long time. It was quite some time if you kind of layer it on the All-Star break. But we got in at a decent hour last night. Guys seem like they're in a good spot today, and it's always fun playing somebody you don't play very often. So this should be a good test. Like I kind of sound redundant when I say that, but Berrios has got a good arm. He's tough on right-hand hitters, so it'll be a good test for us.
When you look at the numbers just from the road trip, as much as everything was going really well, it seemed like the starting pitching was kind of the one numbers that stood out as somewhat struggling. What do you want to see from the rotation now being back home and as you kind of turn the page in the second half?
Well, I think that's something that getting a little bit more length from those guys is imperative. But I will say that there were times during the road trip that I pivoted to the pen a little bit earlier, and that's with respect to usage, to the off day, coming. So right now, I think that, ideally we have these guys go deep in games, but the truth is we're trying to win as many games as possible. Today, I'd probably say we'll try to stay away from Brule. But outside of that, I think that everyone can pitch 2 out of 3 this series, and I feel good about that.
And then just quickly, JD Martinez, how's he doing today?
JD's doing much better today. It's kind of like the adductor, hamstring, but he says he feels much better, got some hip work, and I expect him to be available today off the bench and back in the lineup tomorrow.
How impressed are you by the way the team has, played after the All-Star break, beating, first place teams and doing an awesome job on the road?
Pretty impressed. Like I've said, you just never know how teams are going to come out after a long break. But offensively, we just picked up where we left off. And I think the bullpen is stabilized. And as Kirsten mentioned, just start to start, just kind of getting some more consistency out of those guys will be more helpful.
What's kind of the latest with Kershaw? When is he going to face?
I think tomorrow, as it stands right now, he's going to do that aggressive bullpen we talked about, unless something changes.
Is he here today?
He is here. I haven't seen him yet, but he's got his family here, so I don't know if there's something that he showed up a little bit later, but the plan is for him to still throw the pen tomorrow.
Was it like an unusual thing to kind of push back the pen like you guys had with him? Like I know you're kind of lining up the off days, but it's like, given just the injury he's dealing with.
I think it's, I wouldn't say weird. I would say more of trying to be sensitive to working backward as far as when he starts. Also to the fact that if we don't feel like 100% convicted, then to push it back a day or two, whatever part of this process is, I think we're prepared to do that.
You talked about like you had a target date in mind. If he had indicated there was a date he had in mind, like has that date moved back further from what you guys were
I think it depends on who you ask. I would say where we were thinking, it's kind of more along the lines of where we were thinking.
Has there been any concern with the, heavy usage that you had to employ with some of the young arms out there in the rotation?
No. I think that starting with Emmett, he's approaching where his innings were last year. I don't think there's much fatigue right now. We'll monitor it going forward. With Bobby, I think that Bobby's in a really good spot physically. And I think Michael, who's been around for quite some time, I think he's in a good spot too.
Tomorrow is a week from the deadline. I mean, you've gotten a pretty good sense of this team now. Obviously, you guys have needs, but how much of an overhaul or just kind of, significant addition do you feel like you need as you start looking at the second half here and being where you guys are going to want to be going into October?
I think it's very mindful of it. I definitely don't think it's an overhaul. I think it's more of trying to look at different parts of our club and thinking about raising the floor. Whether I've mentioned before right-handed bat, I think certainly you can talk about pitching from starting to pen guys, and I think that's something that is more front of mind for us.
If we're here a week from now and your rotation is the same, would you be surprised?
Yes.
You expect there to be change?
I'd be surprised, yeah.
Have you ever gone in, since you've been here, gone into the deadline with such an obvious need?
It's hard for me to kind of look at every year, but I almost feel that each year we've acquired for sure a pitcher and a leverage guy, whether it's a pen guy or a starter. So, but given kind of the experience, the health of the starters, this is probably as forefront of mind, I would say, just kind of the bucket pitching in general as we've been in my tenure here, yeah.
As the days count down, are you a little nervous, or when you anticipate a deal happening, how do you track that?
Not nervous. I think that, each year you kind of go through it, making sure the players continue to stay focused on, who's in the room, the team we're playing that night. And a lot of these things, these conversation things that get out, a lot of times don't happen. So I don't think I spend a whole lot of time worrying about it or concerning myself until kind of it gets close. But it does help that I've got a relationship with the guys in the front office, Andrew and Gomer particularly, that we're aligned in kind of the needs.
Can you keep going with the imbalance that you have between pitching and offense?
No. I think that the offense has been fantastic, keeping us in ball games, extending leads. I think, like I said, the bullpen stabilized. I think we've done a nice job of matching guys up, protecting their workload usage. As far as starters, I think that as you look here and you got a little over 2 months left of a season, yeah, that toll will catch up. You can look at off days. I think right now the schedule is sort of in our favor as far as off days. But there's going to be a 13-day stretch coming up where you've got to be able to kind of push guys longer and go deeper in games.
When you think about just the need what you guys need at the trade deadline, is it fair to say that this will be a more aggressive trade deadline for this team?
I don't know. I think that you could argue parts of our club that could probably be improved. But if you look back at my time here, there's been some pretty aggressive trade deadline moves. So, looking back, it's hard to imagine much more aggressive than, getting a Max Scherzer or a Yu Darvish. So we've done some things, Trey Turner. So we've been pretty aggressive. So I don't know, but my trust is in these guys to kind of, understand what we need, but also be smart about it.
Can you illuminate us on the dynamic between the manager and the front office? Are you fully involved? Is it all up to Andy, or at this point is it all about the Dodgers and AI?
No, it's a collected group effort, but certainly when you're talking about acquisitions and trades and things like that, that's what they're here for. My job is to focus on the guys that we have, and but I chime in. We have good dialogue, but at the end of the day, the roster that gets put in front is my job to get the most out of these guys.
Syndergaard just checking in, or is his rehab assignment?
He's checking in, and I think his next start is on Thursday. So I think Thursday he'll make another start at OKC, and then I think that's when the rubber meets the road, where we got to kind of make a decision.
Did you talk to him at all?
I haven't talked to him. No, I saw him in the weight room earlier. I'll make sure I talk to him after this at some point.
Two other guys are on their rehab assignments, right? Like Trace Thompson, isn't he out there? Where's Ryan Pepia?
Ryan is coming along. I think his next start will be 3 innings, if I'm not mistaken. Trace is taking at bats in AZ, and Marisnik is moving around. So that's kind of where we're at with those guys.